Sometimes we invite the dark in on purpose. It started as a simple, self-imposed internet challenge. Read late-night horror forums every single night before bed for 30 days straight. The parameters were straightforward. Find creepy stories from old websites and obscure channels, document the experience online, and treat the content as ghost stories for the modern age. He expected entertaining fiction designed for a quick scare, with no anchor in his actual life. For the first 10 days, the experiment delivered exactly what it promised. The stories were unsettling, but they stayed where they belonged, inside the glowing rectangle of his phone. The mundane reality of his daily life remained completely undisturbed. Every night, the routine locked into place. Alone in a quiet house, scrolling in the dark, soaking in hours of terror before sleeping. He turned his environment into a sealed, silent vacuum, focusing entirely on the digital world while ignoring the physical space around him. By treating these stories as a passive experiment, he felt like an observer in a safe house. He didn't realize that by inviting this content into his room every night, he was training himself to believe the screen was a shield that could never be breached. The anomaly first surfaced around day 12. Across entirely different websites, written by completely different authors, the stories began to echo one another. A subtle, recurring detail kept appearing in the text, the exact same figure of a man standing at the end of a hallway. 5 days later, the digital patterns moved into his bedroom. He woke up abruptly in the dark. No nightmare, no sudden noise. He checked his phone and saw the time, 3:11 a.m. The very next night, his eyes snapped open again at that exact same minute. By day 21, the sound started. He began hearing heavy footsteps pacing continuously on the floor above him. He lived in a one-story house. There was no second floor for anyone to walk on. His brain scrambled for a logical explanation. He convinced himself the impossible sounds and the midnight wake-ups were the physical results of exhaustion, a paranoid side effect of staring at horror stories until his mind began to play tricks. We use rationalization as a filter to protect our sense of reality. By forcing a logical explanation onto an impossible event, we can ignore the evidence that a digital threat has already found its way into our homes. The filter collapsed on day 24. While reading a story about a haunted apartment, he hit a detailed description of the surrounding neighborhood. It mapped perfectly to his own street, describing the exact layout, right down to the specific dead-end road sitting behind his house. He closed the story immediately, but the privacy of his home was gone. That night, when he woke at 3:11 a.m., the bedroom door he always slept with closed was standing wide open. 3 days later, the forum stopped being something he just watched. Comments started appearing under his own username that he hadn't written. The latest one was a single sentence: "He's almost finished reading." He frantically changed his passwords and scrubbed the unauthorized comments from the boards, trying to regain control of his digital identity. But the next morning, the same messages were back, posted as if he had written them himself. He was no longer a user browsing a website. The screen had stopped being a window he looked through and had become an eye looking back at him. Every page he visited was now a record of his own movements, written by something else. Pushed to the brink by sleep deprivation and the sense that he was being watched, he abandoned the challenge on day 29. He decided the experiment was over, but curiosity has a way of overriding fear. On the 30th night, he opened his laptop and navigated back to the site one final time to see if the story had moved on without him. A new post waited at the top of the feed, titled Day 30. The text contained his full legal name, his home address, and the specific details of his current moment, the meal he had just eaten, and the exact clothes he was wearing as he sat at his desk. The final paragraph was a direct command. It stated that he would look outside his window at exactly 3:11 a.m. He slammed the laptop shut and went into a defensive panic. He locked every door, turned on every light, and sat perfectly still, watching the clock tick toward the deadline. 3:10 a.m., then 3:11. From the glass of the window beside him came one slow, deliberate knock, then another. As he sat frozen, his phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "The story isn't over until you look." He never returned to those websites, but the experiment never truly ended. Every night, at exactly 3:11 a.m., the knocking returns to that same window, and it waits for him to finish the story. We assume that we can walk away from the things we read online, but when you spend enough time immersing yourself in the dark, you eventually realize that while you were watching the screen was learning everything about you.